Hi, I am Coach Angie, and welcome to Coffee, Chat, and Connect. Today, we are going to talk about organization, such a really big topic. So, this is what to expect today. So, we're going to talk a little bit about why it's important to organize, what do we organize, how, and when and where. All right, so let's talk about why we organize. So, for every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned, and that's from Benjamin Franklin. Clutter isn't limited to what you see on the outside, but it's about how it makes you feel on the inside. And so, research has shown that organizing, planning ahead helps our well-being. It helps us to feel better. Now, I think that a lot of us get overwhelmed with the idea of organizing. And yes, there is initial effort and energy that's put into that. But if you think about how you will feel afterwards, it's all worth it. So, what are some things that need to be organized? So, there's a bunch of things that we need to organize, obviously, but just to give you some examples, our schedules need to be organized, our house, our car, our purse. We need to organize an agenda, meetings, our meals, all of these things in our lives need to be organized. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how to organize. And as far as how, I'm going to cover a couple of resources and strategies that I use that help me to better organize. Now, I'll let you know right now, I am always looking for a way to be more efficient and a little bit more organized. So, right now, this is what works for me. So, hopefully, you can take away a few ideas or even just one that you think will work for you. So, choose what works for you. There are a lot of different strategies out there, and these so far are the ones that are helping me right now. So the first one is that I use is the Google Calendar. And, I am the kind of person earlier this year, I went to, I don't know, Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and I bought this big, beautiful planner. I said I wanted to customize it. I got all these, fancy things to put in my planner. I spent some money on this planner and I have not used it. I tried. And the main reason it didn't work for me is because I am constantly moving and on the go. Um, and I always have a baby in my arms, and so it's a little bit easier to organize from my phone. So if I can quickly look at my phone and see what I have to do, or if I can quickly add it to my Google Calendar, then that is what works for me. And I was resistant to this whole idea because I wanted to use my calendar, my planner so bad. It just was not working. It wasn't getting used. So I chose to really embrace the Google Calendar. And I forget where I got this idea from because this is not originally mine, but this is what I do with my Google Calendar. So I have a little snapshot of what a snippet of my Google Calendar, and we'll go through each of the different categories. They're not going to be all in the snapshot, but I'll explain how they all work. So in my main calendar, I have, you know, in color coded, I have my appointments. So anything that requires my time. So it could be a meeting that I have, an appointment I have, doctor's appointments, hair appointments, all of those things. It could be recurring appointments, like recurring meetings, anything that requires me to physically, to be there, to be engaged, something that is standard, that I can't really move around. Those things I just chose the color green, and I try to choose colors that stand out. So I have an area for those main appointments or recurring appointments, and then I have things. I need to edit that, but anyway, things to do is what that is supposed to say, and things that are included here are going to be typically my to-do list, if you want to think of it that way. So these are very, very flexible. I try to, so anything that I do on a daily basis. So I have my business activities here. I have things that I do around the house. All of those to-do type things are going to go here. And I have a priority method, and I'll go into more detail what my priority method is a little bit later, but I have it labeled as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And a lot of times things fall into 1 and 2 because I just feel like they're really, really important. Um, but ones are going to be your really urgent matters. Twos or ones are going to be urgent and important. So those are the ones I typically try to get done first. Then twos are going to be urgent. So it could be like, hey, so someone called me and I need to return the phone call. And then your threes are going to be your importance. And usually I get to those like toward the end of the week. So it doesn't necessarily require my attention immediately. And then four are just random things that end up on my to-do list. And usually I just end up not even doing them because they're just really not as important. Or it could be ideas or maybe a goal down the line, but that's kind of how I use the Google Calendar to prioritize my day and to organize my day. And now I also have in gray what's called good to know. I don't use this one as often. And what I would use this section for is if my husband Brandon would be out of town. So it good to knows don't really require my energy. They really don't require my time. I don't have to be there. They are just good to know. So if Brandon's like, hey, I'm going to go get a haircut this morning, then I'll probably just make a note like, good to know Brandon's going to get a haircut or Brandon's going to be out of town or whatever. And then history, I don't use this one like I used to, but I leave it here. So history would be anything that I accomplish from my things to do list, I move into my history. And the reason I am keeping it here for myself is because sometimes you forget if you actually did it. And so the history just reminds you, like, oh, I did post this in my Instagram, or I did return that phone call, or I did do that. So you don't have to remember, like, did I do that? Did I not do that? And then I also have birthdays. So typically birthdays are linked from Facebook and they just kind of show up. But since I'm really, really bad at birthdays, I try to make sure that is synced to my calendar to help me remember. So that's the Google Calendar. The other uh, resource and tool I use to help me organize, typically Google Docs. I'm starting to use OneDrive a lot more. So with Google Docs, I have it downloaded on my phone, and I like Google Docs because I'm constantly back and forth between my phone and my laptop. And I liked that I'm able to start a document in my phone if I have an idea. I can start it and then I can come back to it. I use my Google Docs a lot for brain dumps. So if I have an idea and I'm like, oh, let me get this idea out, then I'll kind of, get it out that way. And I have here, I have my grocery list. We'll talk a little bit more later about how I plan that out. And hopefully you can't see my logins, but I keep my logins there. That's probably not very secure. My affirmations, if I need, some quick motivation, then I have that here. Layla Ali, she's body mom goals. So I have that picture here to keep me focused. My journal, I have a actual journal that I keep. But again, if I'm not able to get to that and I need to like jot down some feelings, then I have a place to do that. And then my wellness goals. So I have just a space where I could just dump a bunch of different ideas or projects that I'm working on, and they're easier to access. I'm starting to use OneDrive more because it is, I have a Microsoft product, and so I do have that now linked to my phone, and it's just another way to make things a little bit easier to access. Okay, so I have been using Stephen Covey's priority matrix for years. I would say at least 10 years is always my go-to. If I'm ever feeling cluttered and overwhelmed, I like to section things out. And so when I was explaining my Google Calendar, as far as priorities, I use this particular method. So, as I said, and I do it a little bit differently, but under urgent, it's 1 and 3 here, but urgent would be like anything that needs your immediate attention. So like fires, you need to be, fires, quote unquote, you need to be that need to be put out. Anything that needs your immediate attention will go under urgent. And then not as urgent would be, but also important would be things like you need to follow up on a phone call or you need to follow up on an email. So a lot of your like your daily tasks might fall under important but not urgent, if that makes sense. And then the next one is not urgent but important. So again, these are things that are important, but they don't necessarily need to be done today. So you might be able to get to these things, later on down the week. And then the last section here, it just things that aren't really priority, but you might think they're a good idea at the time. So go ahead and write it down. And usually I don't even get to these things in this lower right quadrant because as you see here, these are probably things I like to do or time wasters, just random busy work, trivial work, but it's not necessarily anything that is aligned to the goal or it can be actually crossed off the list. So I usually just let those things go because they're not really important. Now, I use the other three quadrants, and what you might notice is that the things that are falling under the not urgent, but they are important, it'll transition into the, important area, and then eventually it'll get into the urgent, depending on how you procrastinate. So, I use this to help me kind of break down what is on my to do list and I typically only focus on the things that fall under the urgent and the important, the urgent and important, or the urgent but not as important category. So I usually focus on a daily basis on the left side of the quadrant, and then the right side I will get to probably later on during the week. Okay, so I have been doing a lot of research on bullet journaling. I've heard about it for a really long time. And at first, I felt a little bit overwhelmed, but there are a lot of different ways to bullet journal, is what I've learned. And so it's good to find all these different ways that you can accomplish bullet journaling, what people would use for this particular method and make it work for you. So, what I found is for me, I like minimalist bullet journaling and I like to focus on a daily log, if you will. There are some people that, they get really, really elaborate, with this. They have all kinds of pens. Like I keep it really straightforward and simple. There are tons of videos on YouTube about bullet journaling. There's a lot out there. So for me, I typically have different quadrants. I just have a snapshot from my Sunday, so you're not going to see as much going on as I would during the week. But during the week, I would typically have a to do list, and that's mostly like my personal things that I have going on. And then I'll have a section for business. I would have a section for events and meetings. I would have a section for, work, food and fitness, and then I have notes and ideas. And my notes and ideas section is usually on the flip side of the page. So I could just jot down different ideas that come to mind that day, or if I was listening to a podcast and I want to write down something that was shared, it would go on that page. And then other things that I would include on my main bullet journal page is the date, and I would include a quote or affirmation to keep me motivated and focused. And the one reason I like to have a date is because a lot of times I am tracking my workouts or I'm tracking my food or I'm tracking what I've gotten done. It's great to go back and be able to see, the last couple days, what you need to transfer over to your journal. Hopefully, you're familiar with this book called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I read this book, or I listened to the audio book a couple of months ago, and I got a lot of really great takeaways from it to help me with framing my morning. And this, I'm talking about when you wake up first thing in the morning. And he calls it the miracle morning because when you're doing what he calls the lifesavers, it helps to create a positive tone for your day. So the SAVERS is an acronym, and S stands for silence. Now, before I go into each one of these, this is, it says takes a total of 60 minutes. You don't even have to do that. You can customize this to what works for you. And that's what I've done. I've customized it. Mine personally takes about maybe 30 minutes, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes. It just depends. So definitely feel free to, play with these times, but as long as you're kind of hitting each of these areas. So silence is first thing in the morning. I just sit down and take a couple of sips of I usually have tea, take a couple of sips of my tea, and then I go into my affirmation. So typically my affirmation is, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I also have a book of affirmation, so I may read my an affirmation from the book, and those two things might take 2 minutes to do. And then I have a quick visualization of how I want my day to go, or I visualize my affirmation, and then I go into my workout. So for me, my workout is actually an hour. So again, if you are not exercising, you can do some simple stretches. You can just kind of march in place just to get the blood flowing, but just do something to get the blood flowing and the heart pumping. And think about how much time you think is a doable time to start with for you. And then you can go into reading. So this is typically some sort of personal development. And I do a lot of audiobooks. So as I'm getting dressed after my workout, I'm usually listening to something from Audible. If you like to read, then you can read as well. But usually I try to spend at least 15 minutes while I'm in the shower and getting ready for my day reading or listening to an audiobook, and then scribing. So this is writing in your journal, and it can be 5 minutes, something that you took away from your personal development. So again, play with this. These do not have to be in order. Obviously, these are in order because of the acronym for you to remember each of the different elements of savers, but you can definitely move them around so that it you have a flow in the morning that works well for you. Now, regarding meal planning, I did share that I typically plan out my meals within my Google Docs. I have a running list of staple grocery items. I have a running list of recipes that I like, and that's just where everything is at. I spent a lot of time building that. So for now, that is just working for me. But there are other ways that you can meal plan. And the main benefit of meal planning, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with the idea of meal planning. But a lot of my clients will say things like, well, at the end of the day, I'm really tired. Um, and I don't want to think about what to eat. So, meal planning is not always just about staying on track on a goal. It is to minimize decision fatigue. Now, if you think about all the decisions that you have to make for an entire day, whatever those decisions are, you get fatigued about making decisions. And if you're trying to choose better things to eat, typically we end up going for what's easier, especially in the evening, because we're just mentally exhausted and we just don't feel like thinking about it. And so going back to that quote, any planning done ahead of time gives you an hour back, or it gives you energy back. So when you think about all the things to plan ahead of time and putting in a little bit of effort to plan, you think about in the long haul for your week, how much energy and how much time you are getting back to yourself. So, a couple of things that you might want to consider when you are meal planning is using meal plans. So there are tons, that I offer meal plans, and I even use meal plans because sometimes I don't even feel like coming up with my own plan. It's easy to pull up a meal plan. You're like, okay, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks are already planned out. Let's just shop from this list and it's done and it's easy. So if you want to try that, reach out to me and you can start with the meal plan, and then you can absolutely adjust the meal plan to fit your taste. So for example, if something calls for lamb and you don't like lamb, or lamb is expensive, you can obviously swap it for something else. Or if it says, hey, have green beans tonight with grilled chicken, and you don't like grilled chicken, then swap it for another vegetable. But at least it gives you a template. There are tons of ideas on Pinterest, and it's really easy to pin a lot of your different recipes that you like. And you can break it down into breakfast, snacks, lunch, and dinner. Or you can add an on the go board, or, a board for snacks to pack when you're traveling. So you can organize your Pinterest board in a way that it allows you to go quickly for some breakfast ideas or quickly for lunch ideas or whatever. There are a lot of apps out there. The ones I've downloaded, I have not used. One is called Meal Board, and the other one that I recently downloaded but I have not used yet is called Organize Eat, Organizeat. So those are some apps that you might want to try. A lot of the apps, they have the recipes, and then if you save the recipes, it'll create a grocery list for you. And some apps get really, really fancy and they sync to your regularly visited grocery stores, and they'll pull in, like coupons so you can see what's on sale based on the recipe. And they'll offer different alternatives, so there are apps that are very um, um, I forget what the word, but they are pretty, they do a lot for you. So that might be something that you want to try. And then a lot of my clients use meal delivery programs. So again, it's just someone just doing the work for you, which is absolutely okay. I use these sometimes. Or if you have a local in your area that does the meal prepping for you, again, it just makes things a little bit easier. So Sunbasket, Blue Apron, Purple Carrot are a couple of popular programs, and a lot of them do have some sort of discount or trial offer, so you can try it out and not put out a lot of money if you're just trying it out. And then as you're preparing your meals, or you're planning out your meals and you're prepping those meals, the one suggestion I have that I think helps a lot of my clients is prep the meal that would be most beneficial for you to prep. So for example, if you notice that dinner is really, really hard for you and you end up just kind of throwing together something, or you end up getting like DoorDash or whatever, and you're shelling out tons of money on DoorDash a couple days a week, then maybe only focus on planning and prepping for dinner versus, breakfast, snacks, and lunch and dinner. For someone that's not really used to meal planning, they don't really have a arsenal of different recipes that they pull from, or ideas that they pull from. Meal planning can be a little bit daunting. So it's absolutely okay to start small. And then once you have a good handle of that one meal, then you can move on to the next challenging meal, whatever that might be for you. So, other ideas to help you with better organizing. So, consider what gets your best energy and attention. So, the challenge here, and I am challenged with this too, is looking at that to do list, right? And really asking yourself what deserves your full and best energy. And so, this it's going to require a gut check, because I think that maybe I can only speak for myself. Sometimes I get excited about something or a new project or a new opportunity, and I'll go for it. And I realize, you know what, this really doesn't align with my goals, or it's not giving me joy, it's giving me more anxiety. And I have to reassess if that's something I want to keep doing or not. And so instead of continuing to add to your list of things, think about what you need to pull away from and be okay with pulling away. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean it has nothing to do with your character. Tell yourself good for you for trying and just say, hey, this isn't really working for me. It's not giving me any value. I feel a lot of anxiety around it. It stresses me out. It does not need to be a part of my life. I need to take it off my plate. So that's one step toward better at organizing. Instead of organizing all the things on your plate, what needs to come off? It doesn't all have to be there. Next is delegate. You do not have to do it all. You don't. Um, if you have a spouse, tell your spouse to take on some responsibility. You don't have to have that on your plate. If you have the luxury of getting a housekeeper, even if it's once a month or whatever you can afford, be okay with that. And you don't have to do it all. And assess your goals and priorities. So this is kind of in alignment with that first topic or first tip. Consider what gets your best energy. I think that it's a good idea to continually assess your goals because they do evolve. The more you learn about yourself, the more if you are an entrepreneur or whatever, the more you learn about yourself and what is important to you, your goals evolve. They take a different shape over time. And I don't think that we always assess, those things, those tasks that are tied to your goals. So think about what your goals are and anything that's tied to that goal, does it still need to be a part of your life? And think about what are your priorities? What are the top things, the values that are going to get your best attention every single day? And then last, you don't have to do it all. You really don't. So, last is a few resources I want to share with you that I have found to be very, very helpful. So, the first one is Miracle Morning. It's a short book and it's also available on Audible. So, make sure you check that out. I got a lot of value from that. The next one is Before the Sun Rises by my friend DeQuayla Lind. She wrote a wonderful book that gives you a lot of great tips that are very, very practical. The next is, and you can Google this one actually, because that's where I got the image from, is Stephen Covey Priorities Matrix. And then the last one, and this is really for those of you that are wanting to better organize your space. I am obsessed with Marie Kondo, and her main premise or philosophy is asking yourself, does it give you joy? And she's really, and for her show, she's referring to, anything that we keep as far as clutter. Is this object, is this thing, is this outfit, are these shoes, are they giving me joy anymore? And if it's not, then consider getting rid of it. And you can use that same philosophy toward any goals that you have, any tasks that are on your to-do list, any organizations that you are a part of. Is it giving you joy or is it giving you anxiety? Is it stressing you out? So if you have questions, definitely reach out to me if you have questions or if you have other thoughts and ideas about organization, I would love to hear them. If you have future topics that you want me to cover, I would love to know that too. And I want to know what resonated with you. So DM me, message me, put in the comments what are you planning to try? What is one thing that resonated with you that you're planning to try? I thank you so much for your time and attention. Have a good one.